On the 22nd of June, 1941, under the orders of Adolf Hitler, millions of Germans would invade the Soviet Union. Although the majority of invaders were from the Wehrmacht, many men of the SS would take part in Operation Barbarossa. Hitler's forces pushed forward using blitzkrieg tactics that worked great for them early in the war, but once the Soviets settled in, they began to slow and eventually halt the Nazi advance. Losses at Moscow and Stalingrad would prove to be major blows to the German offensive and would be some of the biggest turning points in World War II. By now, countless German, Soviet, and civilian lives have been cut short as a result of this brutal fighting. Although they were the elite of the Nazis, the Waffen-SS was not excluded from these great losses. The SS suffered so much, in fact, that in order to obtain more recruits, Himmler loosened the strict original racial requirements to join the group. By the time the Germans had been pushed back out of the Soviet Union, an unbelievable amount of death had been seen. SS Einsatzgruppen squads are operating just about non-stop to exterminate as many Jews and other, quote, subhumans as they could. Headed by the monstrous Reinhard Heydrich, the Einsatzgruppen would murder nearly 34,000 Jewish men, women, and children in late September 1941 at Babi Yar, Ukraine, a site that would see the murder of over 100,000 people by the end of the war, all at the hands of the Nazis and the SS. The needless executions of so many people were having an effect on the SS men as their mental health began to deteriorate. As a result of this, as well as other logistical concerns, Himmler called for an alternative, more efficient method of extermination. This led to the introduction of mobile gas vans, where those unfortunate enough to be put inside would be gassed to death. The bodies were often taken out and buried by other prisoners, as the SS men did not want to be mentally disturbed by handling the dead. In early 1942, the aforementioned Heydrich, who at this point was one of the most powerful men in Nazi Germany and in charge of all things police and security in the Reich, called the Wannsee Conference in Berlin, a meeting between senior Nazi and SS men to discuss what would happen to the Jews of Europe. It was determined that they would be exterminated in death camps outside Germany, and that this would be the final solution to the Jewish question. The SS Totenkopfverbände, or Death's Head Unit, was the group responsible for these camps.
Hitler.
It wasn't Hitler, Goering, Goebbels, Himmler, or whatever the others were called who abducted me and beat me. No. It was the ordinary shoemaker, the neighbor, the milkman, the postman. They received a uniform, an armband, and a cap with a death's head on it, and then they belonged to the master race.
They would see the opening of 3 camps solely for extermination, built in Poland by mid-1942. They were Belzec, Sobibor, and Treblinka. Also at this time, the concentration camp at Auschwitz had been reworked to accommodate mass death. At all of these camps, the primary method of slaughter was to gather as many people as possible into a room and gas them to death. The SS was totally in control of this systematic murder and would only help in perhaps the most significant atrocity ever known to man, the Holocaust.